Welcome to Conversations with Toy, a blogcast tackling life one episode at a time. This is the time to air out life's craziest moments. This space is all about speaking about life's hang-ups and ways in which we can leave better than when we started. Topics are all about ways we can find space to be better in life, love, mental space, and health.
Happy Friday. I hope that you have had the most amazing week. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Toy. I am Toy, your podcaster. I'm also a content creator, freelance writer, blogger. I do a lot of things. I wear a lot of hats, but the two hats that I love the most is being a wife as well as a mother of three amazing children. It is not a mistake that you are listening to this podcast this week, and I pray that whatever you're going through, that this will lighten your load. In this podcast, sometimes not just this particular episode, but on the podcast in general, I often talk about mental health and wellness. That matter of fact, I talk about mental health and wellness and every time we come together for a podcast episode, because I do believe that it's extremely important to have honest conversations about the things that you're going through on the inside. Because listen, we do a good job as a people generally to put makeup on the outside, and makeup doesn't always mean blush and lipstick, but we do a great job of camouflaging what we're having, going on in our minds and in our hearts and our spirits. Because again, all of us have learned how to be good people pleasers. And if you are a previous people pleaser as myself, and you have learned to, not do things just because people want you to do it, you're still very cognate and aware when you get into those habits, those old habits that creep up every now and again, that has you pushing yourself to make people happy. And listen, I believe, which is what I'm teaching my children, that even with me being their mom, I'm not going to like everything that they do. Their decision-making process isn't going to look like mine. And I think we as a people have to have that conversation consistently, because sometimes we want to do the most to people who really don't care. Let's just keep it a buck. People just don't care. With all that being said, welcome to this week's podcast episode. I'm hoping that you had a good week. We're going to talk about how my week went, because, I'm always tired. But I'm always tired because all those hats that I'm wearing. It is a lot of work. And let me just say this really quick, because I know there are some people, I've been hearing rumblings in the atmosphere about content creators and how people are just so, the ick when it comes to content creation. But let me also break this down to you. Yes, you may see somebody go to a restaurant. We film certain things. We edit certain things. We may have apps that help us edit a little bit better than others. But let me also preface, to do that, to be consistent, to show up every single time and literally almost every single day, it takes a lot. And it's so amazing because good content creators, you don't have to know that they were at an event 2 days ago, a week ago, however long. Good content creators that are consistent, you think they're always in these streets. Now, to a certain degree, I am always in these streets, but there are weeks at a time where I actually don't leave the house as often as people are thinking, but my content is so strong, because that's the whole job of a content creator, that you might think I am in these streets every single day. For instance, as we talk about this week, I did not go to a lot of events this week. One more time. I did not go to a lot of events this week. Today's Friday, so I went to 2 events. I know, 2 events. What did I do those other 3 days? Was grateful for peace, grateful for quiet. I poured back into my own personal cup. And let me just tell you, as a mother of 3 and a wife, that's not always easy. If you've been listening these last couple of weeks, my husband got sick about a month or so ago. And since then, it's been almost now 2 months. But since then, he is not able to drive. So not only am I riding and wearing all those hats, I'm now an Uber, the family Uber, right? And it's hard to try to balance getting somebody from practice, to getting somebody from camp, picking somebody up to do this, trying to do my own thing, still trying to keep the business afloat, and yet find family time, find time for me and my husband, time for myself. It is not as easy as it sounds. Think about it in just a personal term. Let's take out all the titles. When you think about keeping yourself healthy, making sure you see your therapist or however you handle your mental health, making sure you eat right, drink enough water, work out, go to work, pay the bills, manage. Even as an individual, it's hard. When you start adding titles, as much as everybody's like, oh, I can't wait to be married, I can't wait to have kids. Listen, I want that for you if that's what you want. But let me also explain to you, when you start to add those titles, the responsibility of adding a title becomes that much greater. And so now you have to be able to balance all of these things. And let me just be honest, some days you're going to get it okay where you feel confident. And then the other days you're like, you know what? I just want to make it through. I just like, Lord, just let me make it through. Okay. And that's just the real life of just how we all are lifing. This week has been such an amazing week for me. I don't know if you can tell by the sound of my voice because my energy is high, but I was able to take so much good downtime, which helped me to plan out my content. And it's going to be so imperative that I do. We're in the month of August, right? And school for some people, now my kids don't go back till after Labor Day. Yes, we live here in Philadelphia where you may hear that some of the Philadelphia school district is going on in August the 25th. My kids do not go to school for the school district of Philadelphia, praise the Lord. And so we don't go back until after Labor Day, right? I say all that to say my schedule is about to go 2 times crazy. When you start adding the pickups and the drop-offs for school, taking somebody to whatever they're interested in. My daughter's in theater, my son's in basketball, my youngest daughter is doing Girl Scout. Let me just say, people might see me on the scenes even more or less because I have to be a present parent now that I'm the one that's doing the driving. I got to make sure I'm here to help with homeworks. My husband and I have a good system. It's not really a stated system, meaning we don't say, okay, you do 2 nights and I do 3, because my personal schedule changes. But what I like to do for myself and for the sake of my family is to make sure that I'm aware of how often I'm going out per day, or per week, I should say, when the school year starts. I have been doing this for the last, I want to say 2 years. Now, prior to that, I probably was out a whole lot, but I would always make sure I did dinner, make sure I plated everybody's food, even if that meant plating food and going out the door. That has been a thing as well. But I have been more cognizant in the last 2 years to make sure that I'm around for homework checkups, make sure I'm around to sign paperwork, make sure that I'm around. And so there are days and times when I just have to say no. There have been people who have been putting stuff on my schedule for September, and those things that are on September already will stick, and things that I cannot do, I will not be doing. And it's going to be a lot of no's. Thank you for the invitation. I hope to see you at another function. But I am going to prioritize myself as an individual, my mental health and wellness, and that of my family. And I'm not making any apologies or needing no amen corner for that, because it's just going to be what it's going to be. So my week has been going great. I have been pouring into myself. I love to be I'm a nerd, okay? A very cute nerd, if I might say so myself. But nonetheless, I am a beautiful nerd. And to me, that just means I like things that other people may not be joyful about. Like getting a new book and flipping the pages and smelling that new book smell, that is the epitome of what I would call a nerd out. And I am okay with that. I love it. So this week I was able to go to a bookstore this week. I was able to purchase a bunch of things that I want for myself, things that I've had on my little personal list that I didn't really say nothing to nobody, but was able to get it. I wasn't even in the bookstore an hour and my joy meter just skyrocketed. Like when I left, I had the biggest Kool-Aid smile on my face, because sometimes just taking that moment out for yourself, even if it's just even less than an hour, I promise you, will do yourself so much good. And I've been reading more this week, not just because I bought the books, but just because it's just like, hey, get back into your books. You got to finish. Not that I have to, but I have challenged myself to read at least 100 books this year. Well on my way. My kids make fun of me all the time. They're just like, you're doing the most. You're always reading. Hey, ma'am, sir. Like I tell them all the time, children, hey, reading is good. You get caught up in somebody else's adventure. You get to make a venture of your own. Your mind gets to go places that you may not ever go in the present world. But I love reading. And so being able to pour back into my cup, enjoying like a small breakfast for myself, enjoying a break, having lunch by myself and getting the things that I truly like, it's just been an amazing week. It really has. Last particular weekend, we celebrated, and when I say we, I'm talking about my husband and I celebrated 13 years of being married. 13 years. We are officially a teenager. We're at that phase of teenagerdom where you're being more adventurous. You're doing more. You're enjoying life a little bit more. You still need, to watch how you do some things. You still got to be careful of how you speak to your partner. You still need to do all those things. Those things never change. It doesn't matter if you've been married 2 days or 3 years or 30 years. Like my parents have been married for over 30 something years. I think my mother said they're going to be, I think it's 40 or something this year or next year. Yeah, 40 years next year, I believe. But nonetheless, you got to be aware of each other. And I'm just grateful. It was a little, listen, every relationship, we don't have a struggle love story. But what I will say is that has there been moments when it's been tested, our love has been tested? I won't say our love necessarily has been tested, but I will say the way we engage with one another has been tested. I think the love has never changed, or I think it grows, or it does change, but it's not the basis of love doesn't change, but how we express it changes. And sometimes in relationships, the interactions with one another does get a little testy. It does get a little testy. We overcome the times when we wanted to argue just for the sake of arguing. I'll say, especially me, I'm a great arguer. I love to start a good argument. I love to end a great argument. I love to argue because arguing to me is like, it's almost like a mental gymnastics, okay? But I've gotten to the point where I'm like, you know what? If it costs me to have to argue my point, I'm going to state my point maybe once or twice, and then after that, I got to let it go. And that's maturity on my part because, again, if you'd asked me to look to the future and tell my 20-year-old Toy, I don't think she would even have the comprehension to believe that. I just don't think she would. I honestly believe that that Toy would be like, girl, you need to stop. You need to stop, and you need to stop right now. And so, again, I'm extremely grateful for having this, to be able to celebrate 13 years. We took a little staycation for last weekend. And when I tell you, I slept in, it's hard for me to sleep in. So I know this is going to sound like my nerd self, but I already warned you that I'm okay with being such. But last Saturday, I slept in till about 9:30, physically sleeping in. I didn't get out the bed until almost late 10:30, 11 o'clock, something to that extent. Then I just got up and got ready for our weekend. And I have not done that in such a long time. But when I tell you the joy, the absolute joy that gave me, I was like, girl, who are you? It felt amazing. Spending time with my husband without the kids, it felt amazing. Not having to share unless my husband and I shared stuff was amazing. Knowing that my kids were good, but yet being able to enjoy our time was amazing. We slept good. We ate good. We just expressed all the things. We had a great time and did what married folk do, but we just had a good time. Just generally just had a good time. I really do enjoy his company, and he does enjoy my company as well. And that's what it's all about. Because listen, marriage and life be getting hard. You don't got to make it any harder. I try to, stand by that, to try to not make it, as hard as it doesn't need to be. So again, just excited to just have that weekend. Pouring into my cup this week, I talked about that. We talked about the anniversary. Now I'm pretty much in back to school mode. Listen, y'all, I talked about this last episode, but y'all are fighting in the comment section on social media about school supplies, and me and y'all are not the same. And when I say y'all, I just mean the ones who want to complain about buying community products. I bought community products for my kids' classes, and then I got them their personalized things that they wanted. Yeah, so lots of money being spent, but obviously for your kids, their future and for their education, it is what it is going to be. So right now I'm in back to school mode. And yes, like I said, they don't start school until after Labor Day, but I am one of those parents that cannot, my anxiety, the way me and my anxiety, we go together sometimes really bad, but not in a good way. But I know how to work around my anxiety. For instance, I can never be the parent that would wait until the night before the first day of school to start school supply shopping. I could not. I can't even do it a week before because it's just something about it that just don't set right in my spirit. And so, yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, by the end of this week, or I would say by the end of next week, I'm going to be done. I'm going to be done with stuff labeled, packed in new book bags, all these things. I can't do the last minute. I'm not the last minute person. So when it comes to uniforms, when it comes to the shoe shopping, when it comes to the school supplies, Between this weekend and I'm telling you about the middle of next, when I tell you all things will be done, I mean all things will be done, because I cannot. Me and last minute just don't go together like that. I mean, me and anxiety already have a love-hate relationship, but when it comes to last minute, I know that for my mental health and wellness, because of the increase in my anxiety, it's better for me to work ahead than for me to pull back and work late. And that just works for me. My husband has been really good about it because he's more of a last minute person. And it's like we are so night and day on a lot of things. And where he's like, it'll be fine. They'll have what they need to have. And if they don't have it, we just grab it later. No. That's just not it. So what he does is just let me do me. He just lets me do me. It's not an argument. It's no longer anything. Matter of fact, he's like, hey, whatever you need from me, funds wise, we splitting stuff. What are we doing? Whatever we're doing, because we don't really have a set system. Sometimes I do it, sometimes he does it, sometimes we do it. It's just about who swiped their card first, to be honest with you. And we're at the point where go get it. It has to get done. Like fighting about it, arguing about it, who's going to do it when, just because I want to do it weeks before. All that matters is that they have their stuff. So I'm grateful that he understands that. So yeah, school supplies, uniforms, back to school shoes. I'm going to be on it. We're going to be on it, but within a week. I'm going to be all set. And I'm talking about completely set. Labeling everything. Me and my kids, we're going to be all right. I buy the little bougie labels. I'm not writing with no Sharpie. I used to do that when my first year, when my oldest went to kindergarten. I think I wrote everything down and wrote names on stuff. And I said, hold on, we're going to have to work smarter, not harder, when I can just buy the labels and smack them on there. That's what I'm doing. And it works just fine, and it works even faster just to slap it on there, and it looks more aesthetic to me. So that's what I'm going to be focused on doing. So yes, not a lot of media events this week, which has been great. Rest and relaxation, great. Family time this week, great. Time for myself this week, great. Spent time with the husband last weekend, great. Everything has just been falling in line, and I've been loving it. But can we talk about my therapist? Now, my therapist, I believe, I don't know for sure, but I'm sure, has probably had conversations with his other people that he has. And of course, I wouldn't know how that lands. But what I will say is, for me, nothing shocks me from nothing that he ever says anymore. Now, in the beginning was a little tough. When you're first meeting your therapist and you're trying to see if you can mesh well, it's like you're in this big interview that just will never end, because it takes a while. If you go to therapy and unless that person was like stomped down disrespectful, you got to figure this out. Like have a couple of sessions, see how it's going to go for real. Don't be so alarmed, calm yourself down, go from there, right? And when I first came to my therapist, I was so broken. I know. I was so broken. There was a situation that happened between my husband and I, and it literally broke me. And before y'all start thinking, no, my husband did not cheat. If that was the case, we'd be having a different conversation. I can almost guarantee you, because my red flags is not going to just let that slide, right? But whatever it was in the breakdown of our communication, it broke me. But you know why it broke me? It wasn't the incident. Because if you think about, if I was to tell you what the incident was, you would be like, what? Girl, the incident alone was enough, right? Because I don't make excuses for nothing and nobody. But what I will say is this. It broke me because I hadn't been pouring enough into myself. I hadn't been as focused. I've been focused on the business. I've been focusing on the wife part. I've been focusing on the motherhood, but I wasn't focusing on me. And because I allowed myself to kind of go, and I don't mean physically like body wise, I just mean just like letting the things that ignite my excitement of life go. The little things will then build up and make everything bigger than what it needs to be. Okay. And that's the period that I was at. So when my therapist got hold of me, I was on a wrap it up mission. I was so far gone and had to work myself to the point where I'm at right now. Did I appear confident during those times? Yes. My content didn't go down. People saw smiles on my face. My kids, we looked like the quote unquote couple goals, which I do not like when people say that. Please don't say that. Nobody is a couple goal. You got to be your own goal, right? And your goals are allowed to change. The issue was for me was that just not giving a damn about myself enough to care, to move, to do the things that needed to be done. It was just disheartening. And I literally had to build myself up. I've been with my therapist now for over a year. I know down to the date when my first therapy. So we've been in this therapy relationship for over a year. Now, before I go any further, let me just say, since on the TikTok this week story, the young lady who fell in love with her therapist, that is not I, that is not he. And I would never give his name up. And I will never put him out on Front Street. And I will never dispel the things that we talk about. And I would never be like, oh my God, I'm in love with my therapist. Because that's crazy. This young lady, in case you didn't know, I'm not even going to give you her name. You go on TikTok or any other social media app and say lady who fell in love with a therapist, it's going to come right up. I was so flabbergasted, if I could say, by that whole conversation. Because when me and my therapist got together, and what I mean by get together, I got to keep saying this because some of y'all be reading and inferring things, but when the relationship was established between my therapist and I for therapy purposes only, okay, no foolery, we bumped heads. Like, it wasn't this kumbaya. It wasn't just like the skies opened up and I was just like, thank you, Jesus, you sent me this great therapist. No, it wasn't like that. In the beginning, I was so broken that I had to like grow, and the relationship had to grow and to understand his way of talking, his way of, his direction, right? And he was the therapist that he was a therapist that just hit it on the head, no sugar, no chaser, no nothing. It was just straight up, pull the Band-Aid off and we're going to deal with this. And that was scary for me. I like to feed me and build it up. No, he was just like, not today, Satan. We're going to go all the way in or we ain't going in at all. So this particular week, this week, we had a conversation, and guess what he said? I will say this part of the conversation. He told me I was mean. I had a mean streak. And he's not wrong. I do. Now, let me explain it. Don't have to, but I choose to. For years, when you are a people pleaser, you go with the flow. Somebody say, hey, I could be wanting tacos, right? Because I love tacos. Just had tacos this week. I want tacos, but soon as somebody else says, oh, I want Italian food, or I want this and I want that, here I go, okay, we can go do what you want. It's all right. I'll just get tacos another time, when you know that another time is not going to come. But when I got to the point where I stopped people pleasing, I had to understand, like, when my discernment started to kick in, I'm going to let it in and just let it go. Like, if I peep game and I peep something ain't together, I'm going to address it. And I'm at the point now in my 40s where I may not be so caring about the feelings. I know that sounds ignorant or rude, but it's not. The reason why I say that is because I refuse to tread light when people are loudly running miles around me. There are people who have been using me and so used to my yeses that they would just know they had it on lock and just do what the heck they wanted to do. Meanwhile, I'm on the sidelines crying like some big baboon baby, and that's not okay. So yeah, my mouth is quick. My spirit of discernment is strong, and sometimes that could come off however it chooses to come off. However, in that same breath, if I've been mean to people and it was not my intention, I'm definitely more than humble to say I'm sorry for doing that. I don't say if I've offended you. I just say, I know that I've offended you. I made you feel a certain way, and that was not my intention. I'll explain to you why. We can go from there, or we can choose not to. So that didn't bother me this week. I enjoyed the fact that he said it, because I needed to be able to say that. It needed to be said in the open space, because sometimes when you don't have when being mean is not something that's embedded to me to where I'm just trying to be mean to everybody, and when I come into their presence, that's not something that's me. But I was feeling some type of guilty when I would have to need to speak up for myself or be more stern about conversations, and that people pleasing thing would just peek her little head up and be like, well, you shouldn't have said it that way, when reality is it needed to be said the way that it needed to be said. It needed to be direct as it needed to be direct. And I've learned that. I'm learning that. So yes, my therapist has been on the money when he has described something that has been going on with me. But what I love about that is the honesty that has been going down with that is absolutely refreshing. Because he doesn't agree with everything that I say. I don't agree with everything he says, and it's okay. The TikTok story of the week where the young lady was falling in love with her therapist, that is a horse of a whole nother color. Because even if I thought that my therapist was fine, even if I thought, why in the world would I tell my therapist that and make my therapist feel uncomfortable? Because to me, that compromises the relationship, okay? It compromises it. And to be so bold to say it, and then to be so bold to tell the world, I know we need to bring back shame. I know that sounds crazy coming from me, but we do need to bring back shame, because somebody would have had to will the jaws of life to get that type of information out of me. Do you understand me? Somebody would have had to use the jaws of life twice for them to get that type of information from me, because I'm not about to willingly give that information and put it on several series on a TikTok, a very open person, not even personal, but very public page. I would never. But here we are. This young lady has fallen in love with her therapist, and I think is this her psychiatrist? It's one. And I'm like, Lord, what is going on with your people, Jesus? Because why? Why are you telling everybody this? Some things that I see on the internet are things like conversations that we would never have had as a kid. Like growing up in my era, in my 40s, again, I don't have any shame about my age. There are conversations that we are having on the internet that would be shocking to like my mother's generation, my father's generation, and they clutch their pearls every time they hear it. And then I have to explain, hey, wait now. The reason why people are having this conversation is because these things need to be spoken up more and not swept underneath the rug. There's a difference between the freedom of just trying to say, listen, this is a situation that happened to me, and I'm not going to be ashamed to talk about it, right? When we talk about people going no contact with the parent, they talk about their narcissistic mother, and they talk about their father who was abusive, and they talk about these different things. Some people will clutch their pearls, but it's the freedom to say, we're no longer accepting this type of behavior in the name of this is your mother, this is your father, so you must allow it to happen, right? Those are the types of conversations that happen, and you're just like, you know what, this needed to be said. When you were telling the world that you believe that your therapist also had fallen in love with you, and nothing that you're saying is even true, then to drop his name, to drop your therapist's name, it's got to be dirty work, because you're compromising his integrity, the way that he does things. Again, I can talk about the things that I want to talk about, but it would be unbeknownst to me to drop the name, to drop the company that he's with, any of those things, because that's not okay. We're in 2025 in the year of our Lord. Why are we acting like this is okay? Because it's not. Okay. I felt bad for the therapist or psychiatrist. And the reason why I'm trying to remember which one it was, but I felt low key, high key, very much embarrassment, right? Because as much as therapy is supposed to be a good tool, and you can see in this instance, it can be very, very much giving bad. There is no need for any of this. So that's why I want to talk about it. Like, if you have a therapist that you feel is doing a great job, like I have actually also blogged about the experience of my therapist, and not in the way where people would be like, oh my God, but the fact that, again, talking openly, because for me to talk about the fact that my therapist was, in the beginning, it was a struggle because I had to learn to like let go and to do things differently to get a different result. Talking about that is going to help somebody else who goes to their therapist and thinks that the sky is supposed to open up and the birds are supposed to start chirping because you had therapy, when reality is you be fighting for your life in therapy. You go to one therapy session and you feel like you're so emotionally exhausted that you fall asleep. That's me. That's what I used to do. Or you're so frustrated and angry at a person that's come up in your therapy where you're taking a day or two to process. Very real things. Talking about that in that instance to help somebody else understand that just because they came out of therapy and they're frustrated doesn't mean that the process is not working. Because they come out of therapy and they're still crying doesn't mean that the process is not working, right? You can go in therapy and feel the feelings, but process it using the tools that your therapist gave. Not falling in love with your therapist, not out here doing the most and putting this therapist out on Front Street, not belittling and disrespecting the profession that they have. Your therapist and your attorney are two people that you should be able to be free in front of. Oh, and also your doctor, your therapist, and your lawyer. You better go in there with the hands, with the cards facing up, and let them know the things, because they can't help you without knowing everything that's going on. They cannot help you. They have to understand you. They have to learn you. New things are going to come up. Those are the conversations that you don't shirk away from. You don't tiptoe around, and you definitely don't play games. You got to be honest about the conversation that you're having with those three people, because if you don't, it could go left real quick. Don't tell your attorney something, they go to court and it comes out, won't look good for you. They're not prepared to defend you. Go to your doctor and lie about the fact that you're struggling with something. Again, you think no big deal, but then it comes up later on and something that could have been prevented, right? Goes left. Go into therapy, spend the monties. Spend the monties. Listen, I have great insurance. My husband, we're underneath his insurance, and he has great insurance. My copay is not breaking the bank. However, when you add up, I don't care if it was $1. If 1 + 1 is still yet 2, it's still adding, right? We got our math together, correct? When you spend that type of monties and you get in there and you're putting that as an investment into your future to heal yourself, to heal your childhood, to heal that lack of confidence, to heal the pain that you may have felt because you got fired from a job, to heal your heart as you're going through a divorce. You're spending this money. You are sitting up there making this investment. And if you don't be honest about what you're going through, and you're going to a therapist, I can almost guarantee you're wasting money. I'm not trying to go to therapy and spend monties only to turn around and then not say what's happening because I'm concerned about how a therapist is looking. Listen, the therapist, your doctor, and your attorney, and a judge, I might have to add them too. Don't go in there playing no games with none of them folk. Don't go in there playing them games, but none of them the four folks, you don't want to play no games. Well, you can lie to your spouse. Not that I'm telling you to. I'm suggesting that you don't. But you could lie to your spouse, and it could make or break a situation because it has done it many a day. But God forbid you lie to those 3 or 4 folk. That's not what you want. That is not what you want, because those 3 or 4 folk has power to either help heal or put you behind bars or worse. I need you to be honest with them 3 or 4 people, right? And always add yourself. Be honest with yourself. People are literally taking therapy and making a mockery out of it at this point. Some of the stuff that I see on any of these apps, but of course, the Clock app. The Clock app is where people are their most raw. Listen, I may have to get cute and put on the makeup and come together for Instagram, where I can come in my rollers. I'm coming with a scarf. I'm coming with sweatpants. I'm coming with anything and just tell my story. I don't have to have a lot to do a lot of things and just be able to express that, right? And that's the difference between TikTok and all the other apps. So while people are coming there raw and they're telling their story, you got to remember, integrity matters. Telling your story and then not realizing the consequences of your story could be a lot. She done lost her job. The lady who was talking about the therapist and stuff, and how she fell in love with the therapist, the newest update is that she lost her job because now she's bringing all this undue pressure and undue stress and drama to the place of her employment, and they had to let her go. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you got to count up the costs. You legitimately have to count up the costs when you do anything. And I need us to get to that point where we just get to that point. Because some of us ain't living right. And I just say us to put us all in the same category. But we all know it ain't us. It ain't everybody. All right, so we know we're going to do our better job. We're going to do a better job of making sure that we are aware of the consequences of our actions before we say things on social media, before we do things that, again, cannot be taken back. It's a conversation that I've had with my daughter this week about making sure that when you put something out, you stand 10 toes down on something, because you just never know how something will be interpreted. And some things is for other people, and some things you got to take responsibility for what you're doing, what you're saying, and how you're coming off. So this is for the older people, middle people, little people, all the people. We've got to be more cognate. One of the other things that I've been not struggling with, but going in my mind is dealing with is like the changes of season. And I'm not talking about summer to fall, although that is a representation of the change of season. But we all have different seasons in our life that don't correlate with the seasons that we're in. Meaning, we're right now in summer, but you could be experiencing a winter in the middle of the summer season. And if you're going through something that makes you feel distant from people, and it makes you feel like things are changing, and it feels like things are cold, and you're like, why is everything happening all at one time? And then I feel like I'm not doing the things that need to be done, and I'm feeling some type of way, and all these different things are happening at one time. You could be experiencing a winter even in the summer, right? You could be experiencing a personal winter while everybody else around you is in the summer season, right? We're in right now. And if you're experiencing that, and it's probably going to be hurtful, it feels uncomfortable. A lot of times it feels really more uncomfortable than anything. I don't want you to feel like, why is it me? Why is it me? Why? I think we all have to understand that each and every last one of us will experience a winter season in the seasons that doesn't correlate to where we are. You know, it does, and it is uncomfortable, but I need you to understand that there is growth there. There's some love there. There's something that always comes out of that winter season that we are sometimes in. There is always some level of growth. There's always some level of growth. And it doesn't always feel like it's that same level of growth, but there is. And I want us to get very comfortable with the fact that in uncomfortable situations, we have to do and pour back into that small cup of ours. The reason why I say a small cup of ours, because in the winter season, you don't see it as a big cup. You see it as a small cup. Sometimes you may see it as a shot glass type of cup. But the reason why I want you to continue to find ways to pour back into that is because we don't get how self-love and self-care really will pull you out of a dark situation. Because if you ever notice when you're going through something, you stop eating as you're supposed to. Water, what's water? I'm just going to keep drinking liquor. I'm going to just keep doing this. I'm not going to continue building those good habits that I know will take care of me. And so this is what I choose to do. This is what I choose to do. But the reality of it is that you've got to get to the point where, again, it may not be a lot. There's been times when I've had whatever going on in my life, and let's just say it's just hard to get out of bed. That's a real life thing that could really be happening. But it's like if I put my first step out and just get up, and I just get up and say, you know what, let me go get some breakfast, or you know what, let me just get some fresh air. Those are self-care points. See, self-care, we've gotten used to self-care as nail appointments, as much as I love those things. We've gotten used to bubble baths being self-care, and those are a small part of it. But sometimes self-care is like saying to myself, okay, I've been sleeping too much. I need to get up and put some movement in my life. Or I'm not getting enough sleep because I'm sitting up with my mind racing 24/7 without any peace, without any calm, without anything. And I might need to just go ahead, write out some things and like do a mind dump, but then might need to do a couple things and go to bed. I just need to go to bed. I just need to go to sleep. I just need to get some rest. I don't need to be up worrying about things that I can't change. I don't need to be up at all times of night and thinking about everything that I can't and I don't have any power over. That is a form of self-care. A form of self-care in the midst of going through a winter season could simply be, you know what? I need to take a break right now from friendships in general. I need to take a break from a person, and not even because a person did anything, just because maybe I'm finding myself too attached to what that person is, what that person represents. And so now I need to just take a step back and then go back into that relationship as beautiful and strong than what it was before. Self-care does not have to be this glitz and glamour that we sometimes romanticize. And I'm all about romanticizing your life because sometimes we look at our lives as not aesthetic enough and all these other things. But reality is that we do need to romanticize some things, but some things got to go back to the old landmark when it was just simple. Some things it's like, you know what, I'm going to enjoy my cup of tea before I go to bed because that's going to make me feel my calmest. Or you know what, I got to get back into my journal writing before I go to bed because maybe if I get into the habit of dumping some things onto the journal, it won't be a burden to carry it all day and all night with me because I can just set it down. Self-care is understanding what you need at that given moment to make yourself a better person and to make better choices. And that's how I choose to look at self-care. So when I tell you that you may have a small shot glass full of like the things that you need, you may say to yourself, I am committing to at least eating at least 2 meals today and maybe drinking a little bit more water today than I did yesterday, because those things right there are going to keep me grounded. Those are the things that I need right now because I know I've been feeding my body trash. What if your self-care is saying, you know what, I'm going to come home from work and I know that I'm going to be tired, but I decided that I need to cook myself a healthy meal instead of going out to eat. That's a form of self-care. What if your self-care moment is saying to myself or saying to yourself, I'm going to say no because I know every weekend there's a person that wants to come to my house every weekend. And I've been telling them yes, even though I'm drained. I've been telling them yes, even though when they leave, I'm so frustrated with myself because I told them yes. And so for today, my self-care is saying no. I have something I need to get done. I really just need some time to myself and don't take it personally. Whatever it is, that self-care moment could just be a simple no to the people that you've been saying yes to that are comfortable and so used to you saying yes. See, we're thinking that self-care is supposed, again, the candles. I love a good candle. I love a good plush robe. I love a quick massage. I love to get a good facial. I love to go to a retreat. I love to do all these beautiful things. But self-care could be in the form of, you know what? I really need to write it out. Or, you know what? I need to call somebody and check in on them because that's going to make me feel ecstatic and happy. That's going to fill me up with joy. Self-care is realizing what you need for yourself at a given point. Yes, romanticize it when you're in that mindset. But let me just tell you something. If my life is feeling like it's going hell in a handbasket, I can get as many facials as I want to. I can change my nail color every day. Listen, they got the new OPI gel sets that you can do at home now. My daughter has been learning how to do her own gel sets and been doing mine too. Listen, I could do that every day with her and change my color up every week. And actually, I have been. She's been changing up my colors and doing all the things. But all those things won't mean anything if I go to bed and I'm still disgusted with myself because I allowed somebody to continue to have power in my life that had no power to begin with. They don't even have enough power to move an ant, but I'm giving them all the power over me. And my self-care may be saying, absolutely not, not today, not tomorrow. We're going to put a stop. No, you can't borrow no money from me. You got to go talk to the Lord. That is a form of self-care. Because we have got to get used to what self-care looks like instead of just acting as if it's only this one beautiful, glorious, fun, bubbly thing, when reality is it comes with different levels, it comes with different stages. It's not what we think it is. So ask yourself, are you dealing with a personal winter in the midst of this summer season? Maybe, everybody else is like, oh, I'm going to the beach, I'm having a good time. And you're just like, I don't even have enough energy. I don't even have enough finances to do all these things. I'm dealing with this. I got this on my plate. My job is on the line. I'm feeling like all these things are happening, but I'm dealing with a personal winter. Maybe that's what you're dealing with. Write down in a journal, for those who can write down, and maybe you want to take a break, come back and get to this point where you maybe re-listen to this episode and get to this particular part of it. But write down, if I feel like I'm in a personal winter, let me ask myself, why? Why am I dealing with a personal winter? What are some of the things that I'm recognizing in my personal winter that I'm going through or that's feeling like it's uncomfortable? What are those things? Because sometimes identifying what the uncomfortableness is, sometimes identifying how you're feeling in the uncomfortableness, sometimes those are so more revolutionary than anything you could ever think of. I know. You can ask yourself why, and then the answer could be, I don't know. Okay, cool. But sometimes we're in our personal winter and we do know why. Those are called a consequence of our decisions. Doesn't mean good or bad or indifferent. It just is a consequence of our decisions. Or I should say, it could mean all of those different things. It doesn't have to be one or the other. The point of this is, ask yourself why. Because if there's something that you're contributing to your own detriment, that you keep finding the patterns of your own detriment, then the question of why will be something that's revolutionary to you. Because instead of you saying what everybody else is doing to you, you can say, what am I doing to myself? What am I doing to myself? How do I keep allowing myself to get here? And then you can take that a step further and say, what are the small steps that led me to this big decision that causes me to be in my personal winter? Because there's nothing about this personal winter that's making me feel fulfilled. I don't feel loved. And it's not because love is not there. It's not because I'm not worthy of it. It's because I've allowed these smaller steps to take its place, to take its domination. And now I'm in the midst of a winter and I don't know how to get out of it. How do you get out of it? Is by going back to those small steps, not repeating them. Let's be clear. But writing it down, understanding it, asking yourself the hard questions and being honest. Listen, remember I said how you got to be honest to the 3 or 4 folks that I talked about. And if you're just, I don't know, somehow skipped and you somehow got here, the judge, the doctor, the attorney, right? Those are the 3. And I think there was another one that you need to be very, very clear about how you address things. Your attorney needs to know so they can defend you. Your doctor needs to know so they can help heal you. The judge, you want to go before the judge and not play no games. right? You got to get to that point, but then the other person would then be yourself. Because again, why would you lie to yourself? That sounds like something that doesn't make sense, but we do it every single day. We tell ourselves one thing's going to happen one way, we know it ain't. We tell ourselves that it's such and such and such a person when it's not. I told you before, and if this is your first time tuning in, howdy, how are you? But when I first started my first full session of therapy, this was years ago. This was probably, almost 11 years ago, because I did it in increments. I had done it when my son was born, is how I discovered I had postpartum. And then the situation that I'm referring to in my head that I need to say out loud is I went through that first session. So let's not say the first, let's say the second particular session. The second session happened because I was in the middle of a conflict between several family members. But here's the beauty in that. I went in armed and ready to talk about all the things that they did, how they spoke to me, how they acted, and how they treated me, and how this felt, because it was from when I was a child, and then it came to now I'm an adult, and now I'm standing up for myself, and now I'm realizing that I don't like this and I don't like that. And then you know what happened? While I was going for them, because of the situation that happened, which opened the door for me to go to therapy again, it actually revealed a lot of things that were happening on the inside of me. Right. So that means while I was talking about what they had done and what they had said, there was but what did you say? What did you do? You're only responsible for yourself. Hey, you're not a child anymore. And so, yes, those traumas are real and you should deal with them as they come, because you may be okay today and then tomorrow you might go back and relapse about something else that happened. But then it's like, what are you going to do with that information? What can you do now that you're an adult? You can set boundaries. You can decide when you want to deal with them. You don't have to go to every family function. You don't have to stay away either. You got to get to that certain point. It was about a bunch of yous, not them. It was me. It was a me. And it could be a bunch of you where you get to say me. Because at the end of the day, we're responsible for how we do and how we interact and how we do and say the things that are happening around us. So again, yes, my second situation stint in therapy was about other people, and then God allowed that picture to turn back to me. And so from that point on, I feel like the freedom that I've gotten, not just in the family situation and just in all things, was the freedom to say, how can I approach a situation? What can I do to fix or find myself in anything and find myself on the other side of good? And because I took responsibility for myself, I don't have a problem with, and I apologized to certain ones and they apologized to me. But even if the apology never came, because some of them didn't apologize, and that's fine with me too. But even in the midst of that apology never coming, I graced myself that apology to move forward. Without that little stank attitude of like, oh, they don't like me, so what? I don't care, blah, blah, blah. Not with all of that. See, when you still have that I don't care, you do care. I don't care what somebody says, you care. Because people who really do not care don't mention. But when you have it on your heart and it's always coming out and it's always a part of your vocabulary, it's because it's in there and you're not yielding that part. You got to yield that. Because now I can look the same folks and I don't have to have animosity. I don't have to come with the attitude. I don't have to come with a twang. I don't have to be ready to roll. I can be on guard as far as not recognize or not even not recognize, but recognizing who I'm dealing with, because, we know each other and how somebody might interact and do the things that they need to do. But I also can then make sure I love myself to not get caught up in stuff that don't have nothing to do with me. Right. And instead of me getting upset, at the time, I was very explosive. Like when the first drama happened and the arguments happened, I was extremely explosive. But learning how to be soft now, going forward, and say what I mean and mean what I say and keep it moving, and not add all that extra drama to it. It's also that's what's working for me. So no, I'm not being a pushover just because, okay, this is happening, but I also don't have to let a lot of things rule and rest and abide in my heart and my spirit when I know I'm just going to be more frustrated. So again, winter season, it doesn't feel good. For me, the winter, it's been like in the natural sense, is when I get more seasonal depression. That's when I feel like I'm fighting for my life the most. But how I handle my winter session, how I handle my winter season will get me to the spring, the summer, or whatever the fall that I'm trying to get to. Like, for instance, this past winter, I felt like I was in more control because I was prepared for the fact that I knew my seasonal depression was going to happen. So it's like, what do I need to do to make sure that I cover myself? What do I need to do to make sure I take care of myself? What do I need to do to make sure that I put certain things in place as we step into the winter? Maybe winter came and it was so unfamiliar to you. You wasn't prepared. You didn't have on no hat. You didn't have no coat on. You didn't have nothing. And winter just came and smacked you in the face. Listen, you're not the only one. And that doesn't mean that it's supposed to just make it feel like, oh, you're not the only one, get over it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you're not the only one that has ever went through a winter season and felt unprepared, because usually when winter comes, you don't know how brutal the winter is going to be. We have the almanac that a lot of people use, and it says, we're going to get so many feet of snow. We're going to have this easy winter. We're going to have to do that. But in the midst of that, you may not be as prepared. You might not be. You ever been in that fall winter when you go out and it's like, okay, it's going to be 50, but then it still feels like it's 30, and it's still yet it's fall. It's not a full winter, but you weren't prepared. So you're outside with less clothes on than you need to be. And that's what it feels like to have winter smack you even in the summertime. That's what it feels like. It feels like I'm unprepared. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. And I feel like I'm drowning. But the reality of it is that I just have to take my small steps. I got to sit this one out and really just put some soul search. I really got to make sure that I continue to keep the people, instead of pushing the people around you that's trying to be uplifting to you, that's trying to love on you, that's trying to do all the things, like find the good people and then let the other situations kind of drift. Because that's how it works. Winter comes and you just be like, damn, I didn't even know my friend was going to do that. Damn, I didn't know my husband was going to act like that. I didn't know my kid was going to show they behind. I surely didn't know my job was going to do these certain things. I didn't know that I was going to have a personal conflict over something that happened 20, 30 years ago. Winter hits hard, even in the summertime. So ask yourself, what is happening? How did I get here? What are the steps that I know that I can take? How can I commit to pouring back into that self-care cup in the way that doesn't mean fanfare and foolery, or fanfare and bubbles and lights, or fanfare and all the googly wonderful things that we love to put on our TikToks and our social media? Because when you are in a real winter, it's hard to convey that part of your winter when you're supposed to give everybody a great snapshot. And the reason why I say that is because as a content creator, I'm going to give a great snapshot, right? It's going to make it seem as if this was like the best experience, because I only showcase the things that I found was great, because it's my page. I can do that. But that's how people work. That's how things work in the wintertime, in your winter season. You're giving people a great snapshot, but in reality, those snapshots reveal so much more. And I think I'm going to go back to it. A lot of times I would post on my page and I would talk about, hey, this is what was happening on the outside, but this is what was happening on the inside. I'm going to go back to that this fall. This is what I was experiencing, because more and more people have to understand how this works. More and more people have to be exposed to not feeling as if they have to have that snapshot of their perfection every single day. That ain't what you're going to get. That's not reality. And the folks that's fighting for their lives, I can believe. So if you're going through a winter season, I would apologize and say, I'm so sorry that you're going through that, but I feel like we all have it. And what I will say is that you got to hold on tight. Don't you let go. Don't you give up. Don't you tell yourself that you're so far off that you can't ever get back. Don't tell yourself that you're so far off in this winter season that it's just, everything is just going to fall apart and you'll never be able to put back together. I promise you will. I am a living witness and a living testimony that you will. I've had winter season come several times in a given year and in a given season, like a given week, given month, given season. I've had it hit hard and was unprepared at many times. Sometimes I was and sometimes I wasn't prepared. And then sometimes I had that notion of like, why does everybody feel like they're moving farther and further ahead and I'm just lagging? Listen, I go through that with my content creation. I go through that with my life. Sometimes if you look at your marriage and you start comparing it to what you think, and let me just also remind, what you think is happening, listen, trust me, it ain't what you think. I learned that from watching a couple that was near and dear to me. I used to just think, oh my God, they're just so lovey-dovey and they're just so whatever. And next thing you know, one of the partners had been cheating. They went to hell in a handbasket. They had to fight their way back. And all because I was like, oh, my marriage is not as strong as so-and-so. My life isn't doing as much as so-and-so. My kids seem like they're not doing what they're... all these things hit, and they can hit at the same time, and they can hit several times later. There's no way of telling the timing. All I can tell you is don't you dare give up. Don't you dare, because when they say as soon as you go to quit, that's when release come, that's when relief come, right? When I tell you the many a days, especially when I was in like postpartum depression and just other times of my life, I was just like, you know what? I can't do no more. I got to get out of here. I got to run. I got to, move away from this thing. I got to get this and that. It was always at those moments when I stayed, when I would just sit there and cry and be like, what, all these things I would have missed because I would have left, or I would have ran, or I would have felt like I was just like the lowest of lows, when reality of it was just you needed just a couple seconds. And listen, maybe you just needed to listen to this episode so that you could feel like you can be encouraged. But I am promising you there's always light. I know you can't see it. You done use your night goggles. You done use your meta glasses. You done did all these different things and you can't see that light, but I promise you that is there. Please don't give up on yourself. Do not give up. And don't give up, just don't. I don't really have no other explanation to say, but don't you dare give up. Don't give up. If you stay the course, I know it sounds cliche, but I promise you, if you stay the course, you will see the light. Keep walking, even in the midst of darkness. When you're getting to the light, a lot of times it'll get super dark before it gets to the light. And I know you're like, listen, if it gets any more darker, I'm going to be non-existent. If it gets any more darker, I'm going to be, every element in the world can come and attack me. That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like. That's not reality. It may somehow look like it's a part of reality, but it's not. I want you to understand that you cannot afford to give up. You can't afford it. You will set yourself back in the worst way because you can't afford it. So don't even pay the price. Don't add no more to that because you can't afford it. You cannot. Don't give up because you're dealing with the winter season in the midst of the summer. I am sending you every piece of love because I know what it feels like to feel like you're by yourself. Please trust and hear my voice. Even if you got to keep replaying it, not just because it helped my numbers, but because you got to understand. You can't give up in this winter season. You just can't. You can't afford to. You can't. Okay? So that is this episode. I do want to encourage every last one of you, whether you're in a winter, if you're in a summer, you're in a fall, whatever season that you're in, and I do mean your personal season, right? I want you to make one objective for yourself for this weekend and the rest of the week until we come again on this another podcast episode, because we got 2 guests lined up for the next 2 weeks. Yes, we have 2 guests lined up for the next 2 weeks. What I will say to you is this: find something that you love, something small, something big, something that is exclusive to you and only for you. Let me say that again. Find something that is exclusive to you and is only for you. Don't do something for somebody else this weekend or this week that infringes on your time. Not telling you not to do things for other people. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, when I'm talking about you finding something that's exclusively for you and if it's for you and it's supposed to help to build you, I want you to find that activity. Again, it could be something as small as putting a puzzle together, but it's your me time. It could be something as saying, you know what? And I've done this in my household. I'm not making anything. I'm not cooking today. I'm sorry, I'm not making brunch today, because I usually on the weekends I make this big brunch. I'm not doing everybody gets cereal or find something in there for y'all to eat. I've done it. It could be as simple as that. It could be as simple as doing like I did last weekend. I'm not getting out of this bed until a certain time, because normally I'm up moving around, running errands, and today I may decide I'm not doing that. But whatever it is that you're choosing to do for yourself, I want you to do it and do it well. I want you to do it and be glad that you were able to find that one activity that was going to be for you and exclusive to you. Okay? Have the most amazing weekend. Have the most amazing week. And I will be back next week with a guest, and the week after with a guest, because that's what we're doing here at Conversations with Toy. Have a good week and a very good weekend.
Thank you as always for joining me, and I know that even in the deepest or joyful conversations that there's something we can learn and apply. Until next time, I hope that you are doing better. If not, we will be back to talk some more and handle it. Peace to you and yours. Stay grounded.